You're listening to the Zach Gelb Show on Fox Sports 920 The Jersey.
4:15 from the Princeton Orthopedic Associates Studios. This is the Zach Gelb Show right here on Fox Sports 920 The Jersey. 609-919-9200 is the telephone number if you want to hop on board with us. Last night in the NBA, you all know the story. Warriors win in 5. Kevin Durant gets ring number 1. Steph, Clay, KD, and the Warriors team get their second ring in the last 3 years. And now joining us as we're going to shift our attention, we'll talk some Warriors. We'll also look ahead to the NBA draft, as that is the big local story here in Philadelphia, is a man that did put together a championship team here in the city of brotherly love as the GM of the Sixers in 82-83 season, and now is the senior vice president of the Orlando Magic. That's Pat Williams, a man that is considered one of the best guests in the history of radio and also has lived an interesting life. Pat Williams with us right now. Pat, appreciate a few minutes. Thanks for the time. How are you?
Zach, I'm doing well. Good to catch up with you and look forward to chatting with you.
Well, I keep on hearing that you're one of the best guests to ever do a radio interview, and you've probably done about 1,000 of these interviews. Yesterday when we were playing telephone tag, trying to return your phone call, and we appreciate you coming on, I got your voicemail. I'll tell you, I've never heard a better voicemail when you're quoting the Big O and Oscar Robertson.
Well, I'm glad you got it, Zach. And even better, I'm glad that we hook up live now. You know, we batted around the voicemail yesterday, so we get to talk in person now, so that'll be good.
You've had such a long career in both baseball and also basketball. You've accomplished so many things. You've been through a lot of highs and also a lot of lows. What else is there to accomplish in your professional career right now, Pat? Well,
it's a good question. I've got 17 grandchildren that we're committed to helping get educated. So that's a big issue, you know, in our life right now. I still have more books to write. My 104th book came out earlier this year, but there are more in the pipeline. So, you know, that's a big issue. And I'm still speaking around the country in the business and educational world. And we still have a basketball team down here that we're trying to get straightened out and move in the right direction. So I would say that there's plenty on my platter, Zach. I have no plans to retire or slow down. I just can't.
Well, let's go back to the beginning of your professional career, and we all know that you grew up as a friend of the son of the Philadelphia Phillies owner. Then you went on to play Wake Forest baseball. Then you had a career as a player and an executive in the minor leagues. Reflect a little bit to me about your career in baseball.
Well, I was very, very fortunate. I did grow up in Wilmington, Delaware, and my best friend growing up was Rollie Carpenter, whose dad, Bob Carpenter, was the owner of the Phillies. So I grew up around the Phillies, spring training and trips to Shibe Park, and, you know, it was just a blessed childhood to a kid who loved baseball. Rollie and I were teammates in the sports at Tower Hill School in Wilmington. I then went on to Wake Forest and caught for the Deacons for 4 years. And then in 1962, when I graduated, I did sign with the Phillies. They sent me to Miami in the Florida State League. I was a catcher. Spent 2 years as a minor league catcher, which was an enormous break for me, you know, to live while riding the buses and learn about the playing end of professional sports. And that led to 5 years operating minor league ball clubs for the Phillies, the last 4 in Spartanburg, South Carolina. And it was there in the summer of 1968 that Dr. Jack Ramsey called me. He was then the general manager of the 76ers and about to become the head coach as well, and he needed somebody to run the front office for him. I never met Jack Ramsey. I certainly knew who he was. I was 28 years old, and he offered me the job of business manager, and I arrived, took the job, and here I am almost 50 years later, still involved in running NBA teams. So that's really well, I think I covered 55 years for you there. You know, from 1962 till 2017. My 50th year in the NBA is coming up in about a year and a half. So it's hard to believe that all of that has happened in my life.
Well, congratulations. When you got that transition to eventually join the Philadelphia 76ers, how tough was it to leave baseball, and what was that transition like, just going from one sport to another sport?
Well, that's a good question. It was shocking. You know, my whole life had been up to that point geared towards a career in baseball, and suddenly, but I never had an opportunity to get to a major league franchise, you know, in any sport, and that happened with Jack Ramsey's hiring me or offering me the job, and I took it. I always kind of thought I'd get back into baseball, and there were a few opportunities along the way, but I had gotten deeply immersed in the NBA, and my roots were there, and I was enjoying my life in that sport. So I just stayed with it. At the end of the day, pro sports, no matter what the sport, is about two things: winning games and selling tickets. I mean, that's why we exist. And I remind myself of that every day, wherever I've been in the sports world, about the importance of what am I doing right now to help this team win, and what am I doing right now to help them sell more tickets. So that's really the bottom line in the sports world.
And we know entertainment is such a big part of that, whether it's with radio shows or professional teams. If you're not entertaining, no one's going to want to see it, and you have to be good at what you do. As we're talking to Pat Williams, I'm only in my 20s, but every time your name comes up in Philadelphia, people, of course, talk about the championship team that you did build here in Philadelphia, but they always mention those detailed halftime shows. Tell me a little bit about the halftime shows that you used to put together.
Oh, Zach, I was greatly impacted very, very early in my career by the great Bill Beck, the great baseball operator and promoter. Bill had a huge influence on me, and his philosophy was very simple, and that is, you know, it's important that fans have a good time when they come to your games, that they have fun, that fun is good. And so I always bought into that, even operating the minor league club in Spartanburg, and came to Philadelphia and followed through, you know, the same way I was down in the minor leagues of baseball. You know, every night we tried to make it fun and entertaining and interesting. And, you know, yes, there was a ball game, but we wanted to surround it with as much fun as we can. Today in the NBA, every night in every building, I mean, it is it's a circus that's going on every night. And it's fun to see the advancement and the development, you know, with all of the extracurricular stuff that goes on with an NBA ball game. I often think, what would Bill Beck think of that? And I think he would be very pleased.
Talking to Pat Williams, who joins us right now, of course, the Senior VP of the Orlando Magic. With the win last night of the Warriors, people talk about great teams. You had an unbelievable team here in Philadelphia with the likes of Dr. J, Moses Malone, Bobby Jones, Mo Cheeks. You guys went on to sweep that Lakers team in the 82-83 season. After all these years, what really stands out to you about that team?
Well, Zach, it was a perfect season. Moses arrived that fall in a huge signing, and he was the difference maker. But from the start of training camp, there was a sense of mission with that group, and the season went perfectly. There were no injuries. There were no dissension. There were no losing streaks. It ended up being one of the greatest teams in NBA history. And then, of course, the playoffs, when Moses announced out of nowhere to the press,
Yep.
That needed to be translated. And what's that mean, Moses? He said, well, free sweeps, you know, faux. Well, we lost one game to Milwaukee, so it ended up 5-0. But that team really has stuck in the heart of Philadelphia fans all over the country. I run into people constantly who want to reflect and reminisce about that group. It was a special team. We never could mount it up again. You know, it was a one-year deal as it turned out, and we kind of thought we'd be around for longer than that. But the players, we weren't quite as sharp after that. But for that 1 year, that was a spectacular basketball team.
Give me a really good story, since you got to see everything behind the scenes about that team.
Oh, my. What can I tell you? Well, I remember vividly the parade down Broad Street, up on mounted trucks, and the whole city turned out. It was just a mammoth parade, and it was about lunchtime. And I do remember there was a construction group, a gang that had been working, and as Moses' float came by, these workers, this construction group, they held up their lunch pails, with arms extended, saluting Moses as one of them, a lunch pail player, which Moses really was. And these workers took time away, and they held those lunch pails out, saluted. It was kind of subtle, but I never will forget that tribute that they paid to Moses. That was one little story that I've always remembered.
How much did you learn from Dr. J, just with what he meant to that team and just the type of person he was?
Well, he was a great human being. He always had time for everybody, and particularly with the media. Very patient. He knew he was selling the sport. It didn't matter whether it was a columnist from the New York Times or a high school kid who was writing a news story for his high school paper. Julius treated them all the same, kindly and with patience, and never rushed. Never turned down an autograph request. Always had a pleasant demeanor. He was one of a kind, and of course we all know about his marvelous talent and how he played and how exciting he was to watch. But he was a very, very fine human being, and still is, and still represents the sport in a wonderful way.
You put that team that you had here in Philadelphia up against the team that we saw last night in a best-of-7. Who wins?
Well, Julia said that our team would. But, there's a 30-year gap there, and I'm not sure our guys could get in shape quick enough. But it was, the game has changed so much. The shooting range and all. We didn't have a three-point shot back then, so it's very, very hard. But when you line up, they would not have anybody who could stop or compete with Moses, and they have a very tough time guarding Julius. I guess that would be Draymond Green, and then you'd probably have Steph Curry matched up with Mo Cheeks, and Klay Thompson would be guarding Andrew Toney. Bobby Jones would come flying off the bench. I don't think they'd have anybody really to match up with him. It'd be a pretty good series, I think. Very, very interesting to watch.
Pat, a lot of people now, when they talk about the Warriors, they have that assumption that they're going to win the next 3-4 titles if they could keep this group together. Are the Warriors good for the league? Let me ask you that.
Oh, I think so. I think great teams, are good for the league. I remember way back in baseball history, the complaints that the Yankees always win. Well, the Yankees also filled everybody's ballpark, and I think it was important to have great teams. The Green Bay Packers for that period were a great team, and brought a lot of attention to the league. So, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. And what it does is force the other teams to really try and get better. I mean, there's no need to try and drag the Warriors down or complain about them. They've built their team primarily through making excellent draft picks.
No question.
That were not easy to make. Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, those were not easy picks. But they made them, and they worked. And then, of course, the addition of Durant was a wonderful bonus. But the meat of that team, came through the draft. So we all have to, mount up and do a better job and keep building our teams and not complain about the Warriors.
No question, the way that they drafted really gets lost in all this with the Durant factor. When Durant, they blew that 3-1 lead to Golden State, and then he goes to the Warriors. When that first happened, what was your initial thought when he elected to go to Golden State?
Oh, I was disappointed. I was hoping he'd stay home, and continue to build what they had going in Okie City. But he has, with free agency, a player has the right to move and do what he wants to do for that period in his career. And Durant had earned the right to be a free agent. and made that decision. But I think everybody in basketball was hoping that he would stay in Oklahoma City. But he saw this opportunity. Every player wants to win a championship. They want to they want a ring, and he saw that as his best shot at it, and he got it. Sure enough, he got it. And and he's a great player, but he's also a great person. I'm a great admirer of Kevin Durant.
Wrapping up with Pat Williams, who joins us right now on the Zach Gelb Show, Fox Sports 920, The Jersey. I got to get to LeBron because I was amazed, and we all know how great of a talent LeBron James is. Averages a triple-double in this final, and still nitwits on Twitter and Facebook and all the social medias now are criticizing him for, just his play. I don't know what else he could have done in this series. Just how about that performance, since you're a lifer of the game, that you saw in these last 5 games from LeBron?
Well, he's been terrific every night. He carries a huge load for Cleveland and goes about his business every night. Never takes a night off. Plays hard. Plays tough. Plays smart. One of the greatest players already of all time. And you've got to figure, he's probably, what is he going to play, another 5 years perhaps, maybe 6? And his numbers are staggering now. But when you project it out to the end of his career, he's going to have done things in basketball that maybe nobody's done. So we're watching one of the great basketball players of all time, and I think we should remember that and enjoy watching him. Enjoy LeBron James, who is just absolutely one of a kind.
Pat, let's go a little bit local here and get to the Sixers, a team that you won the championship with. And every Sixers fan, they want to relive those moments now with this current group. And they still got some work to do, no question about that. But they do have some really impressive building blocks for the future. How do you interpret the future of the Philadelphia 76ers?
Well, Zach, I'd have to tell you, it's very bright. If they can stay healthy, they've had all sorts of bad luck with injuries. But Embiid, if he's healthy, is an absolutely dominating center. We're all anxious to see Ben Simmons. We're deprived of that this year. The Saric kid certainly came over and proved that he's an outstanding player. It'll be very, very interesting to see what the draft brings for them next week. But they're going to get a good player. They're picking 3 in what is, a very nice, deep draft, it appears, through the first 8 or 10 picks. So they're going to come away with another quality player. I like what they're doing. They're slowly and patiently putting that club together, and they need a few more pieces. But they've got some, a very sound nucleus if all those guys stay healthy, and that's the key here.
Do you like the way that they took this tanking to the extreme?
Probably not. I'm not sure that I could have lived through all that. But they elected to do that years back, and they certainly not all the pieces hit. Not every decision worked. There were some that fell by the wayside. So it wasn't all perfect, but they have ended up with some very strong pieces at this point as a result of picking high, and they get another shot at it here next week with that 3rd pick. So. That was the decision they made, and they lived with it, and now they're hoping, to milk some results here that will excite Philadelphia sports fans and put the Sixers back on the map.
I know there's many ways to build a team, and you know that better than anyone, being around the game for how long you've been. Just with the Sixers and what they did with tanking, at first I was someone that didn't like Sam Hinkie, and then just to see what it takes to win in this league and how much talent you have to get, that's why I thought there was some brilliance with what he did. And just, I know the league's not going to like the tanking and having a team intentionally lose for 3, 4, 5 years. What do you just make of Sam Hinkie, and do you believe that he'll get another chance to get a job at some capacity in the NBA again?
Good question. Unknown right now, whether he will or not. That's up for grabs. And the Sixers elected to do what they did. Not every team would do that. Not every city would tolerate it. But that was the decision they made. And little by little, they began to draft these young players. Noel, and then Okafor, and Embiid, little by little. And as I said, they didn't all work out. Not all of them, connected. And then there was the injury factor, which was huge. So it's probably taken them a little bit longer than they thought. But as I said, if they stay healthy now, they do have some really, really good young players. If they stay healthy, they're going to add another one this next week, and they should be a lot better.
And the health is the utmost importance, especially the health of Joel Embiid. And we just saw in that concise time in January just the potential that he has in that Houston Rockets game. A lot of fans, though, here in Philadelphia, they don't have a lot of trust in Bryan Colangelo. I'm sure that you've had more than a few conversations with Bryan. Why do you believe that he's the right person for this job?
Well, and his dad, Jerry, is there as well. I mean, that's a pretty good duo. The two Colangelos have been around this league. If you add it up, probably 75 years or more, something like that. So they know the game inside out. They're veterans. They've been through the mill. They've seen it all. And so to have a veteran like Jerry there, with in the background, and Bryan is the GM, very capable. He GM'd the Phoenix club, then he went to Toronto and did a nice job there. So. No, they're in good hands, good administrative hands. They've got a nice young coach, who has really paid his dues and has developed into a good NBA coach. So I think they're strong in the front office. I think they're strong on the coaching front, and little by little they're getting stronger, in the player end. And I would say they have a bright future. I would be encouraged if I was a Sixer fan.
Pat, I got two more for you as the great Pat Williams is with us right now. The LeVar Ball situation with Lonzo Ball. Lonzo seems like a really nice kid, but his dad is a loquacious guy to say the least. That situation, when you see LeVar Ball says all the things that he does, how do you react to that?
Well, let's just put it this way. He certainly is colorful, and you pay attention to him just simply because he can be so outlandish. But at the end of the day, teams are not evaluating the father. They're evaluating the young man. He checks out very well, very understated, a really good talent, and from what we gather, even a better person, a true point guard, a real leader, and whoever drafts him is going to get a very good, solid player. So I think that's. I don't think his dad is going to impact who drafts him or where he goes in the draft. If you need that kind of a player, well, then take him. If not, we'll take somebody else. But I don't think the dad and his presence will have any impact there at all.
You built so many great teams, and you live such a positive life. And, Pat, you're someone that's a fighter on the court and also off the court. Just give a little advice to some of the younger folks, even younger than me, listening out there that maybe one day have an aspiration to have some type of role with the professional sports team. Well,
the main thing, Zach, is to get your education. Make sure, you're going to need a college degree. You're also going to need a master's degree. That's not even negotiable anymore. You're going to need that educational background. You need to volunteer as much as you can. Meet as many people as you can. You need to be really an intense student of sports. You need to be reading magazines and papers and, really on top of it. You need to be reading books. And, Zach, you can even read some of my books. If you want. My most recent one is called The Success Intersection that I think young people will enjoy. It's about when your greatest talent intersects with your strongest passion. Well, you found your sweet spot in life, and that's where you want to live. That's where you want to get paid. That's where you want to, spend your time, right there in that sweet spot. So hopefully that book is helpful to people. It's called The Success Intersection. So those are a few thoughts. And above all, Zach, life is not easy, and so you got to keep working, and you can't quit. You got to bounce back every day, and come to work with a good attitude, no matter what's going on around you. Stay positive, stay upbeat, stay optimistic, and above all, work hard. How's that sound?
Sounds great. I think a lot of people listening right now really got to write it down and also get your book. One more last thing that just popped into my head, and I should have brought it up in the beginning of the conversation. Your health right now, how are you feeling, Pat?
Well, I was diagnosed 6.5 years ago with multiple myeloma, which is one of the blood cancers. And it'll be 7 years in January. So we've been dealing with that now for almost 7 years. And it's going very well. The Dr. Reynolds tells me he doesn't see any signs of the myeloma. I've been, in various forms of chemo, and they all seem to be working. And so my health is good. I feel, 100%. And, I still get treatment every few months. But all the reports are good, and I'm able to carry on. So, and this was discovered, Zach, way back through my yearly physical. That's when they discovered this. So I urge men who are listening tonight, don't neglect your yearly physical, guys. Even though you may not like to go to the doctor and all, but you need a yearly physical. And if there is something that's not right, you want to know about it early, not late. And fortunately, they spotted this multiple myeloma in my case early, and they were able to get on it. So that's my medical word for tonight. Make sure you get that yearly physical done and don't postpone it because it's important and you want to know what's going on with your body.
Well, Pat, we can't thank you enough for coming on and giving us almost a half hour today. Thank you so much. Continued success, and also good luck coming up next week. Thank you so much.
Zach, thanks a million. Good to talk to you.